What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Found Bytes, a game review series. My name is Brian, and I'll be your host. If you don't know about us, we're all about finding and testing out small, high-quality video games. This is a podcast that aims to respect your time and money as a gamer and a consumer by sifting through storefronts and sales to find those gems that may be worth your precious resources. But enough about the show. Let's get into our next game. Shogun Showdown is the game for this week's episode. Shogun Showdown is a turn-based deck-building roguelike game developed by Roboatino in 2024. And the game is available on PC, Mac, Linux, PS4 and 5, Switch, Xbox One, Series X, and S. Just to compare to some of the games that we've talked about before, some similarities, try to give you the gist. So in the actuality of the gameplay and the combat, it's very much a matchup of Darkest Dungeon and Nova 111. So Nova 111 we did an episode on. It's very much like a turn-based, like you move and everything else moves. Just any kind of action that you do is involved in the turn, and everyone takes a turn together, so you have to coordinate. Combined with Darkest Dungeon and sort of that 2D battle landscape where you're like flat against the screen and whatever position you're in, like in line with your members compared to where the enemies are, all of that matters, and what you can do is dependent upon those positions. And of course, it is a roguelike, so you go on and you complete runs. What I like about it is that you can really take your time because it is turn-based and nothing will happen until you decide what to do, and then everybody else decides what they do. So you can really leave the game sitting there and strategize, which is something that you're going to need to do. And of course, as you're going on these runs, you're going to upgrade. Some of the upgrades are just for that run. Some are permanent. Some are unlocking things in like an available pool of things that'll come up later. Different characters. Similar to things that happen in games like Dicey Dungeons and Pirates Outlaws, where you're unlocking different sort of characters that have different abilities, and then you go in and do a run with them, and things are a little different. The game released with an MSRP of $14.99, and runtime of the game, again, games like this are very difficult to describe in terms of how long it's going to take you. It can really be an endless game. On howlongtobeat.com, the completionist is somewhere over 50 hours, which, you know, depending on how long things take you, could take you longer. You could be trapped in this game infinitely. You could really sink your teeth in. But doing a run or even just trying to unlock all the characters, I think, is about 10 hours. I've been playing it on PlayStation. I got it for my PS5. I've also been playing it on Portal. I paid $8.99 for it, got it on sale, and I'd say I've probably put in maybe like 7 hours, potentially closer to 10. I've unlocked a couple characters, and I've gotten to advanced stages with some of the ones that I have, because it's very similar to Dicey Dungeons in that regard. So I've definitely put a lot of time into it, but I can tell I have not really scratched too much of the surface for what this game has. There is a physical release, and if you're on PlayStation and you go to the icon for the game, it actually advertises it. I don't know specifically where to get it. I think Play Asia, but when I go on there, it only has like the either European or Japanese box art or something like that. So I'm having trouble finding it. It says that Amazon for in the EU, but I'm seeing that it's really just the game box and a sticker set with that, and it's only on PS5 and Switch. And I'm seeing prices range from like 30 to 40, so pretty reasonable for that. And the developer, so I don't know much about this developer. I found that it's a single person, and I don't know where they're operating out of, but when they had this idea for the game, they were signed by Goblin Studio, so I guess that's the publisher. We have talked about Goblin Studio before. They published Iris and the Giant, which is another great roguelike game that we did an episode on. But I haven't really heard anything about this game. Saw it on sale, really liked what I saw. It seemed a bit unique, and so I decided to give it a shot. Alright, let's talk gameplay for Shogun Showdown. So, like we said, this is a roguelike, and so you're going to hear terms we've talked about before, like going on runs, and very similar to a lot of the roguelikes we've talked about before, like Dicey Dungeons, Pirates Outlaws. You're going to have like an overworld map that you're choosing like what stage to go to. It's a lot minor of an aspect when compared to something like Pirates Outlaws or even the aspect of Inscription that has that. But you are kind of choosing where to go to next when you're doing your runs, and then you go in and then you do the actual level, like the battle mechanic. So most of the time you will be in these runs, but when you're not, you're at sort of like the hub menu, which is just your character kind of sitting by a campfire. And you can check a lot of the things that you have access to. You can choose what character you're going to do, what sort of like level of that run you're going to do if you unlock them. And then you can also spend some of your currency to do some permanent upgrades or get access to things in the pool of cards or whatever. But what's interesting is that it's done in the gameplay format of what you'll be doing in the levels, like how you move, how you access things. It's really interesting, and it's a very small minor thing. Let's get into some of the basics. So for the majority, when you're in the runs, the gameplay that you're going to be doing is this 2D view where you see your character flat against the screen, and there are these spaces on the ground where you can move side to side. So you can move left to right, and you do that with the triggers most of the time. Each hit of the trigger is moving one space to whatever side that is. You can cycle through different things to select pretty much at all times. What you're going to be needing to do is swap whichever side you're facing. So there's a button for that to sort of like about face, whether face the left or face the right. That's going to matter mostly in combat. There's a button to wait, which will also have to do with the combat. When you're not in the level, though, you're either going to be in the hub or the overworld, pushing around on the map, going where to go next. And when you're in those scenarios, there will be specific button prompts outside of just like cycling through and selecting things. There'll be like, you know, for this thing, hit square, for this thing, hold circle. And it could just be to like access certain things. It could be to like go to the next level. A lot of what you're doing is kind of looking at the screen. It's not a lot of like in the moment gameplay or, you know, quick moving things or button prompts. A lot of it is just like selecting what you see and then accessing it when you do so. But let's talk general progression for the game. So it's a roguelike. We're talking about runs. The basic idea of a run is to get to the end of that overworld map, to go to the final boss, which is the Shogun, and beat the Shogun, and then you would complete the run. In between that, of course, there's a lot of things that you're going to be doing. So the spaces that you're going to progress on in the overworld map are going to be either battle levels, or they're going to be like shops that you go to, and they're going to alternate. Now, it's not just like a straight line that you're walking in. There is sort of like a path or, you know, branched paths that you're going to be choosing from. It's not going to be a major influence, but it will be like, oh, I want to go to this battle area, or I want to go to this kind of shop. You have like two options every time. When you go into the levels that you have to do battle, it's going to be a series of battles followed by a boss battle, which would be like the final battle in that level. And each battle is going to have something kind of in between. You're going to have a reward kiosk in between to give you a little bit of a breather. Depending on where you're at in the run, your level might have one battle and then the boss battle, or it might have up to 3 battles or 4 battles, depending on how far along you are in the run. And so anytime you're at a shop or a kiosk, this is where you're going to experience upgrading your different things or accessing different things, purchasing ways to upgrade your character or your deck or whatever. And this is going to be by spending currency, and we'll talk about how you get that. So a lot of what you're going to be doing gameplay-wise is a battle and then a respite. You'll upgrade something, another battle. And to win, like we've talked about, you have to beat the final boss all the way at the end of the map. And when you do this, you'll wind up unlocking potentially new characters that have new abilities you can play as, higher levels of different characters. So again, similar to Dicey Dungeons, like if you do the Thief and you beat it at level 1, you'll unlock maybe another type of character, but you'll also unlock Thief level 2 and so on and so forth. When you are in the battle levels, this is primarily what you're going to be doing most of the time. So like I said, you're going to be in kind of this 2D format where you see your character flat against the screen, but there are going to be a certain number of lines or spaces underneath your character. And what your character is going to be doing is going in sort of a one-dimensional traversal. So either you can go left or right. Again, similar to Darkest Dungeon, you can move in a line. When you start a battle level, you'll start in the middle, and there's always going to be an odd number of spaces. So the most basic, you're going to have 5 spaces, so you start in the middle, and there's 2 spaces to your right and to your left. There might be levels with 7 spaces, 9 spaces, even more than that. And as soon as you start the level, enemies will spawn in. And this is going to happen quite a bit of times throughout a level because there are going to be waves of enemies, and we'll talk about the triggers for the new waves. But basically, enemies are going to appear in random spots in the level depending on where you are. Now, the turn-based aspect of this game is super interesting, and it's right out of Nova 111, as I've talked about. So the way that game worked is every time you moved as a character, everything else would do something. I can move, I can attack, I can charge up, I can prepare, do something like that. So it's going to be very similar here. And when you do the thing that you want to do as your one turn, everything else will resolve sort of at the same time, you and the enemy. So what they're doing, what they're strategizing might be reacting to you, but then vice versa as you see them start to do certain things. Now, this is going to be pretty granular because there are a bunch of things that constitute taking a turn. So it's not going to be as involved as you think. It's not like a Japanese role-playing game where you're taking a turn. All the things that might constitute a turn could be you moving one space, either left or right, you turning around, doing an about face, you queuing up one of your cards into sort of like the card queue that'll pop up, you hitting the wait button, and this is something that's also right out of Nova 111 because you can wait as well, and then also confirming to use whatever cards are in your queue. Now, what's really interesting is that you can use all of the cards in your queue. So you can queue up like 2 or 3 cards. I think 3 is the max. And then when you confirm it, your character is going to do those 3 actions, which is interesting because you might think that like you can only get one at a time, but you're going to use all 3. Things that don't constitute taking a turn are going to be using an item that you have in your inventory, looking at any description of anything, and you can move the cursor around, and there's a button where you can get info on anything. Rearranging the order of the cards in your queue, which is going to matter because the sequence of what you do and the order that you do it is going to be important. You can also remove a card from your queue. So this is nice because if you decided that you don't want to use something or you want to save it, you can take it out at no cost. But again, putting a new card back in is going to take a turn. Okay, so the idea of it being turn-based is, like I said, a lot more granular. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to defend and then use this item and then I'll switch to this character or whatever. It's any time you're doing pretty much anything in this game. And the same goes for enemies. So it's going to be a very slow approach to the pace of this game. But let's talk about just sequence in general. So like I said, you're going to be planning things out, but when you choose to do something, your action will go first, and then all of the enemies that have an action that they're going to prepare as well is going to happen after that. So this is going to be important because the timing of like kill or be killed or hit or get hit is going to depend on you doing your thing and hopefully eliminating an enemy before they do their thing. So we talked about all the things that you can do in a turn. The enemies are pretty much going to be the same. They're going to move. They're going to have to turn around. They're going to have to queue up cards. And then they're going to have to confirm to do whatever the cards are doing. And they can also use multiple cards at once. Some of the simple enemies won't do that. More advanced ones and bosses certainly will. It's not really going to be a mystery what enemies are capable of because they're kind of in the same rule book as you. Now, like we said, with the enemies attacking, if they're planning to attack you, there will be visual cues. Like their card will blink when it's like, oh, they're going to attack if you don't do something. But of course, if you have a card queued up to attack them and then you choose to do it, your action will go first. So again, kill or be killed. Other things that will come up if, for example, you're being attacked by two enemies at the same time, what'll happen is there'll be a number under both of them to tell you like what order they're going to do their things. So, for example, if you have an enemy on either side of you, and you have two cards queued up and one is to kill this enemy and one is to do something else, like you want to make sure it's in the sequence that the enemies are going to do something so that you can eliminate the threat of being hit. So like if you know this guy's going to attack after this guy, maybe you can find some way to avoid getting hit or minimize the consequences or the damage. Now, when you're in a battle level, the goal is to kill all the enemies. That's how you progress through. That's how you leave, beat that level, go on to the next level, so on and so forth. But enemies will come in waves. And when you first get into the level, it'll tell you how many waves are in that level. So you'll get into one of the early levels, it'll say like wave 1 of 3. And so you get 2 enemies on the board and then you go to work planning on how to kill them. Now what's interesting is if you kill those enemies that are on the board, then it'll automatically jump to the next wave. If you don't and you take your time, eventually the next wave will come. And the game has really good ways of indicating this, like the words that say wave 1 out of 3, it'll blink when it's like this is the last turn, then automatically the next wave is coming. Again, just thinking about like how you might go about getting rid of enemies or how you might go about pacing, there is sort of a clock. So you can't just like wait or like try to avoid them but not hurt them. Like you do want to be on the attack when it comes to enemies because eventually the next wave is going to come regardless. Now the big thing, of course, this is a deck building game. So let's talk about using your deck. Now this is not a deck that you're going to have like 50 cards or 20 cards. You're going to start your deck with 2 cards. And these are going to be 2 moves or attacks that are going to have specific attributes. So every card is going to have a number for damage that it's going to do. It's going to have some kind of picture that's going to give you some insight into what the attack is or the type or whatever, as well as a number of slashes at the bottom of the card that indicate the cooldown. So once you use it, how long it takes for it to be available again. And of course, that's communicating how many turns it's going to take, and we know what constitutes a turn. And these cards are going to vary in terms of what they can do, the range of their attack, the effects of it, the direction that it's going to go in, as well as how many upgrade slots, because cards can be upgraded. And just some examples, like one of the most basic ones that you'll get early on is just the sword. And the sword will do 2 damage to the space right in front of you that you're facing. And that's pretty basic, but there are going to be swords that will attack both sides of you. And it'll have like 2 swords that are opposite face on the card. And so if it says 2 damage, it's going to do 2 damage to the space in front of you and the space behind you at the same time. So again, that'll work if you're surrounded by enemies and you might want to plan it that way. Other things are going to be sort of a grab attack. That's like a hook shot, and it'll grab any enemy and pull it all the way right in front of you. And it'll also do damage. There's a spear card that will attack the 2 spaces in front of you and do however many damage to both of those spaces. Some cards will attack only a space, 2 spaces in front of you, or 3 spaces in front of you. There's all kinds of different things that you're going to come across that really make the game interesting and also get you moving. Because, like I said, moving your character left or right is going to take a move, but sometimes you're going to get cards that do movement for you or bring enemies towards you or push enemies away from you. So that's really going to add to sort of the versatility of moving around. And of course, you can improve these cards. So like I said, you've got shops, you've got kiosks. After each boss, you will get a card offering to add to your deck, which is very nice, but you'll be able to upgrade the different aspects of the card. It could be the damage, the cooldown, the range, or the effect, or add different effects. All kinds of different things that you can do, and those will cost currency. Your character will have a starting health. I think most of them start with 10 health. They'll also have specific movement patterns. So the basic one, obviously you're moving one space at a time, but some of the advanced characters, they can move all the way to one side or all the way to another side. They're also all going to have a special move. And this is primarily for when you are like right in front of an enemy, what you will do. So the basic character will be able to swap places with the enemy in front of you as part of a turn. Again, this could have very interesting sequencing strategy, because if you know enemies are about to attack, you can swap places with one of them, and then you can get all kinds of things going on. Whatever the special move for your character is, though, it will also have a cooldown, much like the cards that you have. So you will need to be aware of that, especially as you're strategizing. Keep an eye on that, because there have been a lot of times where I banked on like having that switch ability for this particular turn coming up, and then I tried to do it and I didn't have it, and I wound up having to take a bunch of hits. Enemies in this game are going to be fairly simple. They will have varying max health. So you have enemies that have 1 hit point, some that have 4, 5, even beyond that. They are going to themselves, like I said, be playing the same way that you're playing, but some of them are going to have different tendencies. Some of them are going to be more aggressive with their movement. They're going to have access to different cards depending on what kind of enemy they are. But again, these are cards that you will become familiar with because you can eventually gain access to a lot of them, but they will have different personalities and movesets depending on the different enemies. So you're going to have big guys that, maybe are more aggressive and hit heavier, but don't move as much all in one turn. Some of them can move multiple spaces, and being around these different enemies, you're going to start to see patterns. And so when you see certain enemies, you're going to be like, okay, I know him. He does this kind of thing, or this guy is going to have one of these throwing things ready. So I need to be ready and prepared. So recognizing these patterns, it allows you to predict and strategize as soon as you see the enemies and before you even start planning out your turns. And some of these are going to have similar things to you. They can have melee attacks, ranged attacks. Some of them are going to sit still and shoot ranged attacks. Some of them will shoot them across at you. Some of them will actually shoot things up in the air and then have like spaces that they're going to hit. So you need to be ready to get out of the way. Some of them are going to buff other enemies. Some of them are going to summon other enemies. There's even going to be environmental manipulation. And what that means is they're going to conjure up like obstructions or something that's going to really impede what you're trying to do, that you have to get rid of them. And of course, you're going to have boss battles, and these are awesome. A lot of advanced moves. Some of them will do things like teleport. Some of them will do things that I don't think you can ever get access to, especially in the sequence that they are going to do them. So those are really tricky, but I really enjoy the boss battles and the different variety that's not normal in terms of the regular battles that you go into. As you're killing enemies, as you're getting through these levels, you're going to get rewards. And what's interesting is as soon as you kill certain enemies, the rewards will kind of plop onto the battlefield, and you can collect them during the actual battle. It's not really going to matter that much, because if you don't collect them, you'll automatically get them. But if they happen to be items, this is going to be very useful because you'll be able to use them in real time. So you will start with 3 spaces for items. And when you fill up those 3 spaces, you won't be able to pick up more items, but you can use them at any time during battle because, again, using items doesn't take a turn. And the different items that you're going to find are like health potions that'll give you like 3 health, debuffing all the enemies, whether freezing them or cursing them or poisoning them or doing other things, buffing yourself. You really want to take advantage of these and be mindful of when your items are full, because you might want to, make sure that you go get that extra item, because if you don't get it and your thing is full and you win the battle, you won't get that item. Coins are going to be the main currency, and these are going to be on the floor spilling out, but these you don't have to worry about. These you'll automatically collect at the end of the battle. but these are going to be used to purchase things at shops, at kiosks, different upgrades for your cards, things like that. As well as when you beat a boss, you're going to get boss skulls, and these will accrue as well. These you'll be able to use at shops, but these you'll also be able to use back at the main hub to give more permanent upgrades or add different cards and different things to the pool that's available. So just a general pace of play, your strategy is going to be what you choose it to be, and the longer you play this game, recognizing enemies, things like that, or even just the different character that you're using, you might vary what strategy you choose. When in doubt, though, you're going to need to plot each turn. You're really going to need to take your time, recognize, learn enemies, and manage your moves and your cooldown. Something I did a lot early on was like use all my moves at the same time in sequence to do like a big attack, but then I didn't have any moves for a while. So you need to ration your moves. Also be mindful of the sequence that you do things in, because you might be able to really chain together some combos. Like you might be able to kill an enemy in front of you, grab another enemy, take their place, and then kill this enemy. But if you don't do it in the proper sequence, you're going to mess up, or you're going to, if the different effects require you to have like an open space in front of you, like you need to make sure you clear that. Just doing things in sequence. Some of the special moves, being able to swap places. Friendly fire with enemies is a thing. So that's going to be something you really want to take advantage of. Like, if you have two enemies on either side of you that are attacking this turn and you swap places with the one in front of you, all of a sudden they're going to attack each other and maybe kill each other. And then all you just did was use your special move and no cards, and all of a sudden you are free to now like attack other enemies. It basically becomes a chess game where you need to kind of plan 2 to 3 moves ahead and see what the enemies are doing and what possibilities might come about and really strategize. I would say you know that you're comfortable in this game when you start to do combos. And combos means like in one turn killing like 3 enemies. And again, like I talked about, maybe you have a slash in front of you and behind you in one move, and then you bring over somebody else and then you kill them. And there's all kinds of ways to do combo moves, but I feel like once you start doing those, that's when you're feeling comfortable and you're really understanding sequence of events. And finally, in terms of accessibility, what's interesting is all of your currency is actually permanent. And I didn't realize this until recently, but your coins and your skulls, they're permanent. And you can use them during the run and in permanent upgrades sort of after the run back at that hub, campfire, or whatever. Now, it's interesting because I feel like most people would react to this by saying like, well, I feel like the prioritization is going to be you want to hold on to things for permanent upgrades without wasting them during the run, because if you upgrade things during the run, it doesn't carry over. It's not permanent. But honestly, I did not feel an issue with this at all. Again, I didn't even realize that the currency was permanent. You can spend both of those currencies during the run and also outside of the run, but I found that like outside of the run for permanent upgrades or adding cards to the pool or whatever is primarily the skull currency, which you get from beating bosses. And I found that you actually don't use that or don't have the opportunity to use that as much during a run, as well as vice versa with the coins. So you have more opportunities to use the coins during the run. You're getting more coins during the run. So while they're both permanent and they're both usable in and outside of the run, I do appreciate that there is sort of like a split of the focus or the priority for each currency, sort of like balancing it out for you without you even realizing. Again, I didn't even realize. The info button is a major thing that you need to take the time to use. Like I said, you can cycle through things to select. Even during battle, while it's your turn, you can look at your cards and their abilities, what the different cards will do. All you have to do is hold the info button and it'll tell you everything, as well as the different upgrades you may have gotten to your character, their special move, whatever. There's no difficulty selection. There's no difficulty level like easy, medium, hard, or anything like that. But it does steadily increase, obviously, as you beat runs, as you unlock more complex characters, as well as if you beat with one character on day 1 and then you unlock day 2. Well, day 2 is going to be harder for that character. There's going to be tougher enemies, maybe even more limitations on your abilities. Again, if you played Dicey Dungeons, it's right out of that. You can quit the game at any time and it will save your progress. It'll bring you right back. What's interesting, though, is if you die in battle, that's kind of a game over, and you can go back to the camp, or you can just click Start New Run. I clicked both of them. I've died and then gone back to camp, died and did a new run. It's basically the same thing. But if you do either of those things and then you close the game, you can actually come back, go to main menu, and then hit continue, and it'll bring you back to where you were in that run at the beginning of the battle where you died. So I don't know if this is a glitch or not, but I was able to, on a couple runs, kind of beat that final boss. I didn't do it every time. I did it maybe once or twice, but it's something that is possible. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but to start a new run, you have to like go back to the main menu and hit new run. And that's not like new game. It doesn't mean like you'll start a completely new thing or anything like that. It'll have all your progress in the game, but you'll just be starting a new run and choosing whatever character. All right, let's talk about the vibe of Shogun Showdown. And let's start with the visuals. The game is heavily pixelated. The characters, the enemies, not so much the environment. I would say it's a little more rendered. It feels a little more smooth, but there's definitely some pixelation all around. With the characters, I would say there's minimal detail in their face and expression, and that's fine because I don't think this game is about that. But a lot of detail in like the different accessories or garb that they're wearing. Like you can definitely see what kind of hat the enemies are wearing, how they're dressed, things like that. But just not a lot of detail in like facial expressions and character, which is fine. There's a bit of a stage feel. It reminds me a lot of like a Paper Mario where like you're in the center and there's kind of like a combat clearing. Like behind you, there's, a lot of emptiness or a lot of lighter colors, but the foreground and the background are like surrounding you, almost like a proscenium of like a theater. And so it feels like there's a little bit of depth on the sides, both behind and in front. There's kind of like this open space in the middle that's like, this is the stage or this is where the action's happening. And that's really interesting. Everything is very darkly colored. The different characters, the enemies, everything is kind of dressed in black. And it's a bit uniform, but there's still ways to differentiate, obviously, between you and the different enemies. If you have a character that has a face, it is bright white as a nice contrast. But the enemies are definitely in all black, but a lot of red outlining to really highlight the details, but just dark coloration. And it kind of gives this vibe of like, I don't want to say feudal, but like that's where the themes are heading, but very oppressive, like no colors, no massive creative spark or anything like that, just like uniform dark color. Now, in terms of indicators, there are ways that the game does communicate outside of that, which is very helpful. So obviously if enemies are going to attack, like the cards are blinking in like a yellow. If enemies are doing like an AoE attack, like the spaces on the ground in the battle are going to have like yellow triangles with exclamation points, like warning you. We talked about if there are multiple enemies attacking and like if they're doing them in specific order, there'll be a 1 and a 2 under those enemies. That's very yellow and clear. When a new wave of enemies is coming, automatically, like we said, the words will blink, sort of like in a red. Anytime enemies are doing anything, moving, there'll be yellow arrows, just a lot of visual communication to tell you what's going on, as well as when enemies drop things, like the different items and the coins that pop down on the ground. Like you'll see them very clearly. They're colored differently. And they definitely stand out so you won't miss them. In terms of theme and setting, very Japan. So you've got samurai, ronin, different generals that are the different bosses, just a lot of like feudal Japan, I feel. Certainly in the garb, the different hats or helmets that they're wearing, just accessories like that, and the weapons, like you'll see katanas, you'll see different things like that they're holding. There will be castles in the background. The buildings that you go to on the overworld map are going to look very Japanese. There's not a lot of story or exposition that you're getting, but there is this sense of like fighting for the people. Like you are going and you're trying to kill the shogun. I don't know if there's some kind of corruption, but this idea that like you have to save the land or something like that. There's not a lot of people that you come across that aren't enemies, but there are shopkeepers. And they seem to be on your side. Every time you come to one, they throw you a potion and they're like, keep it going, keep up the fight, we need you, things like that. And so I don't really know much about story and whatnot. Don't really think it's that important. But you definitely do get a sense of like something's going on. It's very dark. There's a little bit of supernatural elements that might be involved. Nothing really explained, but just really cool, especially in terms of the different bosses, what they can do. And in terms of audio, really like the music in this game. It's certainly a bit chiptune. It sort of matches the pixelation, but very Japanese inspired, as well as the sound effects. When you play a card, when you kill an enemy, you'll hear like that dun 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 or something like that. It reminds me a lot of Bloodless, a game that we played a while back on the Switch. A lot of similarities. Like you've got like these woodwinds, you've got these dang 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 or whatever, strings that are being pulled, flutes and things like that. So a lot of instruments that you would expect that just hit the nail on the head, really capture the feel. And so the audio is really a plus for me in this game. All right, let's wrap up the conversation about Shogun Showdown. I really enjoy this game. I really enjoyed my time with it. I'm still chugging along at it. And unexpected. I don't know. I keep saying that I'm not a big fan of roguelikes, but maybe my tastes are kind of changing because we've done a bunch of episodes of games that are just like this that kind of got their hooks in me. I don't know how, but I'm still a sucker for the permanence, feeling that progression, building up a story. It's not so much here, but there's something about it that's really getting at me. It could be the sort of jump in and play anytime, very similar to Balatro, Dicey Dungeons, but getting that progress. And what I like about this game is you're kind of getting progress in different ways. Like obviously you're unlocking characters, you're getting cards into the pool, but also just learning how to play this game. Progressing in this game is just learning how to work things, how to be patient, and how to get better. And I'm constantly having aha moments like, oh, I actually didn't need to do anything there. Or, oh, if I would have just done this one move instead of these three, I actually could have, saved myself a lot of headache, things like that. And I really appreciate that because I'm someone who is a patient gamer. And I feel like if you are too, it's going to be right up your alley. Really unique mashup in terms of just the basic gameplay of Darkest Dungeon, that 2D combat, where your position is, how it matters for the move that you're going to do, as well as the Nova 111 turn-based concept. Like everything you do is a turn, and everything, almost like a Crypt of the Necrodancer, like everything is moving to a beat at the same time, but obviously a little more sort of open-ended and patient because you're hinging everything. As well as just the framing and the pacing, which is very similar to Dicey Dungeons. This similar minimalistic deck building where it's not like you're building a whole deck, but like you only have like 3 or 4 cards and that's all it takes for you to be massively successful or get really far. And I like that. In terms of value, I think 15 is perfect as an MSRP. Any sale is going to be great for this game. If you get it for under 10 like me, I feel like that's a steal. I think the value here is really good. It being a roguelike, there's going to be sort of that endless value, like you can always come back to it, but I just see so much value here, especially for the intricacy of the gameplay and how infectious it is. I think roguelikes are all the rave right now. I'm not somebody that's big on like what's popular. And again, I'm not a huge fan of the genre, but it's getting its teeth into me. I think this one stands out. It rewards patience, strategy, and it's got this feudal Japan setting and aesthetic. So if you're into any of that or all of that, I highly recommend. Even if you're somebody like a chess player, I think you would find so much value and strategy in this game. So I highly recommend this game. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode to see what new game we found for you.